The next morning Seniya Bimbisra, the king, announced to the Blessed One that it was time for taking food. "Thou art my most welcome guest, O Lord of the world, come, the meal is prepared." And the Blessed One, having donned his robes, took his boland, together with a great number of bhikkhus, entered the city of Rajagaha. Saka, the king of the Devas, assuming the appearance of a young Brahmin, walked in front, and said, "He who teaches self-control with those who have learned self-control, the Redeemer with those whom he has redeemed, the Blessed One with those to whom he has given peace, is entering Rajagaha. Hail to the Buddha, our Lord! Honor to his name and blessings to all who take refuge in him." And Saka intoned this stanza: "So blessed is an age in which Buddhas arise, so blessed is the truth's proclamation. So blessed is the Sangha, concordant and wise, so blessed a devout congregation. And if by all the truth were known, more seeds of kindness would be sown, and richer crops of good deeds grown." When the Blessed One had finished his meal, and had cleansed his bowl and his hands, the king sat down near him and thought, "Where may I find a place for the Blessed One to live in, not too far from the town and not too near, suitable for going and coming, easily accessible to all people who want to see him, a place that is by day not too crowded and by night not exposed to noise, wholesome and well fitted for a retired life? There is my pleasure garden, the bamboo grove Valovana, fulfilling all these conditions. I shall offer it to the Brotherhood whose head is the Buddha." The king dedicated his garden to the Brotherhood, saying, "May the Blessed One accept my gift." Then the Blessed One, having silently shown his consent and having gladdened and edified the Magadha king by religious discourse, rose from his seat and went away. 22 Sariput and Moggallana. At that time Sariput and Moggallana, two Brahmins and chiefs oft followers of Sanjaya, led a religious life. They had promised each other, "He who first attains nirvana shall tell the other own." Sariput, seeing the venerable Assaji begging for alms, modestly keeping his eyes to the ground and dignified in deportment, exclaimed, "Truly this Samama has entered the right path. I will ask him in whose name he has retired from the world and what doctrine he professes." Being addressed by Sariput, Assaji replied, "I am a follower of the Buddha, the Blessed One. Being a novice, I can tell you the substance only of the doctrine." Said Sariput, "Tell me, venerable monk, it is the substance I want." And Assaji recited the stanza, "The Buddha did the cause unfold of all the things that spring from causes." And further the great sage has told how finally all passion pauses. Having heard this stanza, Sariput obtained the pure and spotless eye of truth and said, "Now I see clearly, whatsoever is subject to origination is also subject to cessation. If this Beta doctrine I have reached the state to enter nirvana which heretofore has remained hidden from me." Sariput went to Moggallana and told him, and both said, "We'll go to the Blessed One, that he, the Blessed One, may be our teacher." When the Buddha saw Sariput and Moggallana coming from afar, he said to his disciples, "These two monks are highly auspicious." When the two friends had taken refuge in the Buddha, the Dharman the Sangha, the Holy One said to his other disciples, "Sariput, like the firstborn son of a world-ruling monarch, is well able to assist the king as his chief follower to set the wheel of the law rolling." And the people were annoyed. Seeing that many distinguished young men of the kingdom of Magadha led a religious life under the direction of the Blessed One, they became angry and murmured, "Gautama Sakyamuni induces fathers to leave their wives and causes families to become extinct." When they saw the Bhikkhus, they reviled them, saying, "The great Sakyamuni has come to Rajagaha, subduing the minds of men. How will be the next to be led astray by him?" The Bhikkhus told it to the Blessed One, and the Blessed One said, "This murmuring, O Bhikkhus, will not last long. It will last 7 days. If they revile you, O Bhikkhus, answer them with these words: it is by preaching the truth that Tathagats lead men. Who will murmur at the wise? Who will blame the virtuous? Who will condemn self-control, righteousness, and kindness?" And the Blessed One proclaimed this verse: "Commit no wrong but good deeds do, and let thy heart be pure." All Buddhas teach this doctrine true, which will for I endure. 23 Anathpindak. At this time there was Anathpindak, a man of unmeasured wealth, visiting Rajagaha. Being of a charitable disposition, he was called the supporter of orphans and the friend of the poor. Hearing that the Buddha had come into the world and was stopping in the bamboo grove near the city, he set out in the very night to meet the Blessed One. And the Blessed One saw at once the sterling quality of Anathpindak's heart and greeted him with words of religious comfort. And they sat down together, and Anathpindak listened to the sweetness of the truth preached by the Blessed One. And the Buddha said, "The restless, busy nature of the world, this, I declare, is a root of pain. Attain that composure of mind which is resting in the peace of immortality. Self is but a heap of composite qualities, and its world is empty like a fantasy. Who is it that shapes our lives? Is it Isvara, a personal creator? If Isvara be the maker, all living things should have silently to submit to their maker's power. They would be like vessels formed by the potter's hand, and if it were so, how would it be possible to practice virtue? If the world had been made by Isvara, there should be no such thing as sorrow, or calamity, or revel, for both pure and impure deeds muse come from him. If not, there would be another cause beside him, and he would not be self-existent. Thus, thou southeastest, the thought of Isvara is overthrown. Again, it is said that the Absolute has created us. But that which is absolute cannot be a cause. All things around us come from a cause, as the plant comes from the seed, but how can the Absolute be the cause of all things alike? If it pervades them, then, certainly, it does not make them. Again, it is said that self is the maker. But if self is the maker, why did it not make things pleasing? The causes of sorrow and joy are real and objective. How can they have been made by self? Again, if we adopt the argument that there is no maker, our fate is such as it is, and there is no causation, what use would there been shaping our lives and adjusting means to an end? Therefore, we argue that all things that exist are not without cause. However, neither Isvara, nor the Absolute, nor the Self, nor causeless chance, is the maker, but our deeds produce results both good and evil according to the law of causation. Let us, then, abandon the heresy of worshipping Isvara and off praying to him. Let us no longer lose ourselves in vain speculations of profitless subtleties. Let us surrender self and all selfishness, and as all things are fixed by causation, let us practice good so that good may result from our actions. And Anathpindak said, "I see that thou art the Buddha, the Blessed One, the Tathagat, and I wish to open to thee my whole mind. Having listened to my words, advise me what I shall do. My life is full of work, and having acquired great wealth, I am surrounded with cares. Yet I enjoy my work, and apply myself to it with all diligence. Many people are in my employ and depend upon the success of my enterprises. Now, I have heard thy disciples praise the bliss of the hermit and denounce the unrest of the world. The Holy One, they say, has given up his kingdom and his inheritance, and has found the path of righteousness, thus setting an example to all the world how to attain nirvana. My heart yearns to do what is right and to be a blessing unto my fellows. Let me then ask thee, must I give up my wealth, my home, and my business enterprises, and, like thyself, go into homelessness in order to attain the bliss of a religious life? And the Buddha replied, the bliss of a religious life is attainable by every one who walks in the Noble Eightfold Path. Hate that cleaves to wealth had better cast it away than allow his she-art to be poisoned by it, but he who does not cleave to wealth, and possessing riches, uses them rightly, will be a blessing unto his fellows. It is not life and wealth and power that enslave men, but the cleaving to life and wealth and power. The bhikkhu who retires from the world in order to lead a life of leisure will have no gain, for a life of indolence is an abomination, and lack of energy is to be despised. The Dharma of the Tathagata does not require a man to go into homelessness or to resign the world, unless he feels called upon to do so. But the Dharma of the Tathagata requires every man to free himself from the illusion of self, to cleanse his heart, to give up his thirst for pleasure and lead a life of righteousness. And whatever men do, whether they remain in the world as artisans, merchants, and officers of the king, or retire from the world and devote themselves to a life of religious meditation, let them put their whole heart into their task. Let them be diligent and energetic, and, if they are like the lotus, which, although it grows in the water, yet remains untouched by theater, if they struggle in life without cherishing envy or hatred, if they live in the world not a life of self but a life of truth, then surely joy, peace, and bliss will dwell in their minds. 24 The Sermon on Charity. Anathapindaka rejoiced at the words of the Blessed One and said, I dwell at Savatthi, the capital of Kosala, a land rich in produce and enjoying peace. Pasenadi is the king of the country, and his name is renowned among our own people and our neighbors. Now I wish to found there a vihar which shall be a place of religious devotion for your brotherhood, and I pray you kindly to accept it. The Buddha saw into the heart of the supporter of orphans, and knowing that unselfish charity was the moving cause of his offer, in acceptance of the gift, the Blessed One said, the charitable man is loved by all, his friendship is prized highly, in death his heart is at rest and full of joy, for he suffers not from repentance, he receives the opening flower of his reward and the fruit that ripens from it. Hard it is to understand, by giving away our food, we get more strength, by bestowing clothing on others, we gain more beauty, by donating abodes of purity and truth, we acquire great treasures. There is a proper time and a proper mode in charity. Just as the vigorous warrior goes to battle, so is the man, who is able to give. He is like an able warrior, a champion strong and wise in action. Loving and compassionate he gives with reverence and banishes all hatred, envy, and anger. The charitable man has found the path of salvation. He is like the man who plants a sapling, securing thereby the shade, the flowers, and the fruit in future years. Even so is the result of charity, even so is the joy of him who helps those that are in need of assistance, even so is the great nirvana. We reach the immortal path only by continuous acts of kindliness, and we perfect our souls by compassion and charity. Anathapindak invited Sariput to accompany him on his return to Kosala and help him in selecting a pleasant site for the vihar. 25 Jetavana Anathapindak, the friend of the destitute and the supporter of orphans, having returned home, saw the garden of the heir apparent, Jeta, with its green groves and limpid rivulets, and thought, "This is the place which will be most suitable as a vihar for the brotherhood of the Blessed One." And he went to the prince and asked leave to buy the ground. The prince was not inclined to sell the garden, for he valued it highly. He at first refused but said at last, "If thou canst cover it with gold, then, and for no other price, shalt thou have it." Anathapindak rejoiced and began to spread his gold, but Jeta said, "Spare thyself the trouble, for I will not sell." Anathapindak insisted. Thus they contended until they resorted to the magistrate. Meanwhile the people began to talk of the unwanted proceeding, and the prince, hearing more of the details and knowing Anathapindak was not only very wealthy but also straightforward and sincere, inquired into his plans. On hearing the name of the Buddha, the prince became anxious to share in the foundation and he accepted only 1/2 of the gold, saying, "Yours is the land, but mine are the trees. I will give the trees as my share of this offering to the Buddha." Then Anathapindak took the land and Jeta the trees, and they placed them in trust of Sariput for the Buddha. After the foundations were laid, they began to build the hall which rose loftily in due proportions according to the directions which the Buddha had suggested, and it was beautifully decorated with appropriate carvings. This vihar was called Jetavana, and the friend of the orphans invited the Lord to come to Savatthi and receive the donation, and the Blessed One left Kapilavatthu and came to Savatthi. While the Blessed One was entering Jetavana, Anathapindak scattered flowers and burned incense, and as a sign of the gift poured water from a golden dragon decanter, saying, "This Jetavana vihar I give for the use of the brotherhood throughout the world." The Blessed One received the gift and replied, "May all evil influences be overcome, may the offering promote the kingdom of righteousness and be a permanent blessing to mankind in general, to the land of Kosala, and especially also to the giver." Then the king Pasenadi, hearing that the Lord had come, went in his royal equipage to the Jetavana vihar and saluted the Blessed One with clasped hands, saying, "Blessed is my unworthy and obscure kingdom that it has met with so great a fortune. For how can calamities and dangers befall it in the presence of the Lord of the world, the Dharmarjya, the King of Truth? Now that I have seen thy sacred countenance, let me partake oft refreshing waters of thy teachings. Worldly profit is fleeting and perishable, but religious profit is eternal and inexhaustible. A worldly man, though a king, is full of trouble, but even a common man who is holy has peace of mind." Knowing the tendency of the king's heart, weighed down by avarice and love of pleasure, the Buddha seized the opportunity and said, "Even those who, by their evil karma, have been born in low degree, when they see a virtuous man, feel reverence for him. How much more must an independent king, on account of merits acquired in previous existences, when meeting a Buddha, conceive reverence for him? And now as I briefly expound the law, let the marja listen and weigh my words, and hold fast that which I deliver. Our good or evil deeds follow us continually like shadows. That which is most needed is a loving heart. Regard thy people as men do an only son. Do not oppress them, do not destroy them, keep in due check every member of thy body, forsake unrighteous doctrine and walk in the straight path. Exalt not thyself by trampling down others, but comfort and befriend suffering. Neither ponder on kingly dignity, nor listen to the smooth word soft flatterers. There is no profit in vexing oneself by austerities, but meditate on the Buddha and weigh his righteous law. We are encompassed on all sides by the rocks of birth, old age, disease, and death, and only by considering and practicing the true law can we escape from this sorrow-piled mountain. What profit, then, in practicing iniquity? All who are wise spurn the pleasures of the body. They loathe lust and seek to promote their spiritual existence. When a tree is burning with fierce flames, how can the birds congregate therein? Truth cannot dwell where passion lives. He who does not know this, though he be a learned man and be praised by others as a sage, is beclouded with ignorance. To him who has this knowledge true wisdom dawns, and he will beware of hankering after pleasure. To acquire this state of mind, wisdom is the one thing needful. To neglect wisdom will lead to failure in life. The teachings of all religions should center here, for without wisdom there is no reason. This truth is not for the hermit alone, it concerns every human being, priest and layman alike. There is no distinction between the monk who has taken the vows, and the man of the world living with his family. There are hermits who fall into perdition, and there are humble householders who mount to the rank of rishis. Hankering after pleasure is a danger common to all, it carries away the world. He who is involved in its eddies finds no escape, but wisdom is the handy boat, reflection is the rudder. The slogan of religion calls you to overcome the assaults of Mar, the enemy. Since it is impossible to escape the result of our deeds, let us practice good works. Let us guard our thoughts that we do no evil, for as we sow so shall we reap. There are ways from light into darkness and from darkness into light. There are ways, also, from the gloom into deeper darkness, and from the dawn into brighter light. The wise man will use the light he has to receive more fight. He will constantly advance in knowledge of truth. Exhibit true superiority by virtuous conduct and the exercise of reason, meditate deeply on the vanity of earthly things, and understand the fickleness of life. Elevate the mind, and seek sincere faith with firm purpose, transgress not the rules of kingly conduct, and let your happiness depend, not upon external things, but upon your own mind. Thus you will lay up a good name for distant ages and will secure the favor of the Tathagata. The king listened with reverence and remembered all the words of Buddha in his heart. 26. The three characteristics and the Uncreate. When the Buddha was staying at the Valovana, the bamboo grove at Rajagaha, he addressed the brethren thus: whether Buddhas arise, O priests, or whether Buddhas do not arise, it remains a fact and the fixed and necessary constitution of being that all conformations are transitory. This fact a Buddha discovers and masters, and when he has discovered and mastered it, he announces, teaches, publishes, proclaims, discloses, minutely explains and makes it clear that all conformations are transitory. Whether Buddhas arise, O priests, or whether Buddhas do not arise, it remains a fact and a fixed and necessary constitution of being, that all conformations are suffering. This fact a Buddha discovers and masters, and when he has discovered and mastered it, he announces, publishes, proclaims, discloses, minutely explains and makes it clear that all conformations are suffering. Whether Buddhas arise, O priests, or whether Buddhas do not arise, it remains a fact and a fixed and necessary constitution of being, that all conformations are lacking a self. This fact a Buddha discovers and masters, and when he has discovered and mastered it, he announces, teaches, publishes, proclaims, discloses, minutely explains and makes it clear that all conformations are lacking a self. And on another occasion the Blessed One dwelt at Savatthi in the Jetavana, the garden of Anathapindaka. At that time the Blessed One edified, aroused, quickened and gladdened the monks with a religious discourse on the subject of nirvana. And these monks, grasping the meaning, thinking it out, and accepting with their hearts the whole doctrine, listened attentively. But there was one brother who had some doubt left in his heart. He arose and clasping his hands made the request, "May I be permitted to ask a question?" When permission was granted, he spoke as follows: The Buddha teaches that all conformations are transient, that all conformations are subject to sorrow, that all conformations are lacking a self. How then can there be nirvana, a state of eternal bliss? And the Blessed One, in this connection, on that occasion, breathed forth this solemn utterance: There is, O monks, a state where there is neither earth, nor water, nor heat, nor air, neither infinity of space nor infinity of consciousness, nor nothingness, nor perception nor non-perception, neither this world nor that world, neither sun or moon. It is the uncreate. That, O monks, I term neither coming nor going nor standing, neither death nor birth. It is without stability, without change. It is the eternal which never originates and never passes away. There is the end of sorrow. It is hard to realize the essential, the truth is not easily perceived, desire is mastered by him who knows, and to him whose sight all things are not. There is, O monks, an unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, unformed. Were there not, O monks, this unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, unformed, there would be no escape from the world of the born, originated, created, formed. Since, O monks, there is an unborn, unoriginated, uncreated, and unformed, therefore is there an escape from the born, originated, created, formed. 27. The Buddha's father. The Buddha's name became famous over all India, and Suddhodana, his father, sent word to him saying, I am growing old and wish to see my son before I die. Others have had the benefit of his doctrine, but not his father nor his relatives. And the messenger said, O world-honored Tathagat, thy father looks for thy coming as the lily longs for the rising of the sun. The Blessed One consented to the request of his father and set out on his journey to Kapilavatthu. Soon the tidings spread in the native country of the Buddha. Prince Siddhartha, how wandered forth from home into homelessness to obtain enlightenment, having attained his purpose, is coming back. Suddhodana went out with his relatives and ministers to meet the prince. When the king saw Siddhartha, his son, from afar, he was struck with his beauty and dignity, and he rejoiced in his heart, but his mouth found no words to utter. This, indeed, was his son. These were the features of Siddhartha. How near was the great Samama to his heart, and yet what a distance lay between them. That noble Muni was no longer Siddhartha.